Well, hello there, watching the press preview. A first look then at what is on the front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines with the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and the associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Gavin Maguire. Lovely to see both of you. Welcome.
Hi, Anna.
I know you're through with us until midnight as well, or just before, so let's check out the front pages then. The Financial Times leading with the passage of the government's proposal to spend £12 billion on health and social care, funded by an increase to national insurance contributions. The Guardian also leading with social care investment, adding experts believe the funding will not fix the crisis. The social care bill comes as the Telegraph reports the NHS plans to recruit 42 new executives on salaries of up to £270,000 each, prompting questions about health service spending. The Metro dubs the Education Secretary Gavin the Gaffe after he claimed he'd spoken to footballer Marcus Rashford on a Zoom call when in fact it was rugby player Maro Itoje. Both sportsmen happened to be black. The Eye hears that COVID booster jabs could be offered to as many as 35 million people and that the effort could be finished by Christmas. According to the Daily Mail, victims of police failings have called on the head of the Met Police, Dame Cressida Dick, to resign. And the Express leads on a fresh crackdown on migrants crossing the Channel, suggesting they'll be turned back to France if caught crossing illegally. French anger adds the Times, who are also leading on the Home Secretary's decision on Channel crossings. And the Star leads on Geronimo the alpaca as the debate continues over his bovine tuberculosis diagnosis before he was killed. So Andrew Pearce, Kevin Maguire are here, and the post-vote reflections on the spending on health and social care. Fascinating, do you not think, Andrew, in this topsy-turvy world we're living in, that Tories have voted for tax increases and Labour has voted against health spending?
You could hardly make it up, could you? And Boris Johnson, I know, when he had a private meeting with Tory MPs tonight, insisted that the Tory party is still a party of low taxation. But look, the world has changed completely. When the Tory party elected Boris Johnson as leader, they pretty much knew he wasn't Margaret Thatcher or cast in the mould of Margaret Thatcher. When he was Mayor of London, for instance, he supported an amnesty for illegal migrants. That's not a policy you would ever have found a hardline Prime Minister like Thatcher supporting. But he defies gravity all the time. As Lord Adonis, who was Tony Blair's head of policy, wrote today in Prospect magazine, the left underestimate Boris at their peril all the time. I think he's got this deal through the Commons, a very limited Tory rebellion. Probably the usual suspects were the ones who were opposing it. And you've got Labour MPs trooping through division lobbies to oppose a £36 billion boost to health spending. Now, Kevin will say, oh, well, it's because of the way the money was being raised. He can say what he likes. The optic is appalling for the Labour Party, and the Tories will make hay with it.
Yeah, just quickly on that, before we get to some of the detail, Labour has just handed a future election doorstep gold plate to the Tories and marched to the centre ground. Does it matter for them, Kevin, do you think?
Look, you'd have had to be at the optics in a pub drinking spirits to think that Labour voted against the increase in spending. Labour voted against the increase in national insurance, which is the unfairest way of raising money. Capital gains tax, Labour hasn't spelled it out. There's a hole in the Labour position there, but they kind of hinted that capital gains tax would have been far fairer if you're going to raise this money, not national insurance, which means very low-paid workers will be taxed to protect the inheritances in Tunbridge Wells, parts of Surrey, of people who've got huge assets and want to keep them. And as The Guardian shows there, the 12 million gamble will not fix care crisis. Some people involved in it. Most of the money raised will go to the NHS. There's only about just under 6 billion of the 36 billion in the first 3 years going to go to social care. Some people will still have to sell their houses. The floor has gone down from 23,000 to 20,000. So before, you got free care if you had in England assets of 23,000. Now it's down to 20,000. I think Andrew's paper, the Daily Mail, is going to be spending the next year or so finding the flaws in the policy he's now converted to, as he applauds higher taxes on workers. Taxes he would have opposed as a tax on jobs if it was proposed by Labour.
Yeah, and that fundamental...
Well, let me tell you,
Go on then,
can I just say on this, Because the job of opposition is not just to oppose, it's to come up with constructive alternatives. And Kevin said there's a hole here. They didn't say we'd raise the money through capital gains tax. No, they had no policy at all. And when Liz Kendall, who is Labour's shadow, who's in charge of social care for the Labour front bench, was asked on the BBC radio, what is your view? What would you do? 3 times she was unable to say. Keir Starmer's been opposition leader now for 15, 16 months. This policy they could have had, to quote a cliche, they could have had an oven-red policy, Kevin, which could have embarrassed the government. But as usual, Starmer's been found wanting. And the irony is, Liz Kendall in 2018 signed a letter supporting support to increasing social care by raising, guess what? National insurance.
I'll join in the criticism of Keir Starmer and Labour for not having a fully worked out policy. But beginning of the week, Andrew, you were opposing the national insurance increases.
Got any policy?
You've changed in 48 hours. You've gone from opposing
policy at all.
Yeah. I mean, that is quite a change, mate. That is
can I just ask you, Andrew, can I just ask you on the specifics even of the £86,000 cap on lifetime care costs? That is care. It's not accommodation, which could be half the bill. So you're looking at doubling that, and that's at local authority rates, which is subsidised and is not the rate that private residents pay. So if you want a better room nearer to home, it's not included either. People will be selling their home left, right and centre, as we heard from multiple MPs today. This is funding people in the South East whose properties cost a fortune.
Well, my problem with the package is, as Kevin identified, most of it's going to sort out the NHS, which is very important, although I in the past, spending vast sums of money on the NHS doesn't seem to improve waiting lists. A lot of it gets spent on the wrong sort of thing.
Well, let's see the Telegraph on that story while you're talking.
In an ideal world, I would not have wanted national insurance to rise to support the getting waiting lists down and to start to get to grips with social care. But at least we've got a Prime Minister who's had a stab at it and had a go at it. The first time this was raised was by Tony Blair, who set up a Royal Commission in 1997. He did nothing about it, nor did Brown, nor did Cameron, and Theresa May's policy had to be abandoned 2 weeks after she launched it during the election campaign. No, it's not ideal. I'd much prefer there was some form of insurance scheme, but I still think that could happen.
Yeah, you can have an insurance scheme to top up to get you to the 86,000, I suppose. Anyway, sorry, Kevin, quickly,
No, it's a tax rise in search of a policy. We're going to have to see how it worked out. There is no fully fledged, well worked out, well thought out, doing what Boris Johnson says policy. It just doesn't exist. He always just flies by the seat. And he's gambling with tax rises, with those already announced on income taxpayers by freezing the thresholds, the allowances, and the increase in corporation tax, which I back, of 6% that's coming. Those combined tax rises are something north of £30 billion. He's gambling on losing his reputation for the Tories as a low tax party. It was never true anyway, but he's gone now at the highest tax take for 70 years on somehow doing in Labour by saying he's going to fund the NHS. And so Labour at the next election can't say, look, you need to vote for us to save the NHS. He wants to say he's saving the NHS, but he's taken a colossal gamble. But let's not fall for spin about having a fully fledged social care policy. It just ain't there.
Yes, well, of course, Boris Johnson told the 1922 committee that the Tories were still a party of low taxation this evening, which is, with the 70 years, the record-breaking 70 years, feels a bit strange. But anyway, just very quickly, I'm going to show you the Daily Telegraph, which we saw. The NHS, they say, is hiring an army of 42 new executives on salaries that beat the Prime Minister's. More than £9 million will be spent employing dozens of chief executives, raising questions about how the extra money will be spent. But I want to move on, if you don't mind, to the Eye, which many people are wondering about. Boosters to be wrapped up by Christmas. 35 million, the boosters for people could start in the next fortnight. Are we expecting an announcement soon then, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to go through the JCVI, the Committee of Government Scientists, and they do seem to be dragging their heels. But every minister I've spoken to is pretty confident that whatever they say, the government has taken a decision that we will get boosted jabs. But there will be a surge in infections for sure. Schools have gone back. There'll be a lag before those infections come through. We saw what happened in Scotland, a huge increase in infections. So why not start giving boosters to older people, people with underlying health issues, people over the age of 65 will all be in line for a booster. So Kevin will be getting his booster quite quickly, not me just for a few years yet, of course. But I think people will be really pleased to hear this, because the whole vaccination programme seems to have gone off the rails a bit. This will get it all going again. And I think it will be good for confidence, because we don't want people getting nervous and wary, thinking, is my second jab efficacy beginning to wear off? I won't go out, I won't go to the theatre, I won't spend money. We've got to get this economy going, and booster jabs is a really important way to boost confidence.
I mean, the thing is, do you put all your eggs in the vaccine basket? If you look at the metro, with the crowded platforms, the crush hour, the paper says, journeys on rail and road bounce back as the UK returns to work. You see the Commons, the cheering, unmasked cheering in the House of Commons. Is it time to realise that, you know, there is still a place for mitigations as we roll into the schools return, autumn, winter pressure, and not just rely on boosters, Kevin?
I would have thought so. That's a picture at Clapham Junction, and that is incredibly 7:45 yesterday. And you know, the House of Commons, where I go in most days, just about every restriction has gone. Whether that's wise or not, well, there's a big debate around that. But as you said, it looks like all the eggs are now in the vaccination basket, and that's 35 million. The eyes say the government thinks it can give us through the NHS by December, but the GSEVI, I think it meets tomorrow, hasn't decided yet whether it thinks booster jabs are worthwhile. I remember it came out against them for kids aged 12 to 15 because it didn't think the medical impact would be particularly significant to justify it. There are other issues around it, and the government hopes to get the 4 chief medical officers across the UK to agree, so it has some scientific backing. But following the science is very, very loose now. So much of it is about public opinion, and I think most public opinion, people want a booster jab. Whatever the medical impact of it, they will feel safer with it. But if they feel safer with it, and there are very, very few mitigating factors in place now, then does that mean people will just become blasé, complacent? And we mustn't forget, we haven't beaten this virus yet. I think looking at the figures today, 191 deaths. The week-on-week figure is up to 1%.
Yeah. Let's go to the Metro. Gavin the Gaffe. Take it away, Andrew.
Well, he's a complete idiot. We've always known that. He should be fired because he's been so incompetent. 2 years of chaos in exams. And now he tells the Evening Standard he'd had a very nice conversation on Zoom with Marcus Rashford, the incredibly popular Manchester United footballer, who humiliated him not once but twice on free school meals, except it wasn't Marcus Rashford. His team had to point out it's actually Maro Itoje, the rugby player. The connection between the two, they're both black. He's had to issue a grovelling apology. Good God, it's humiliating. It has to be the final straw.
Kevin?
Yeah, they can't let him out, can they? They thought they had to give him an interview, show him nice and reasonable, and somehow he can recover his reputation. He can't. He's just got that touch where he gets everything wrong, and because they are both black, you can't miss what that might mean. But look, he's got two incredibly famous people here. It's not as if he's talking about Mr. Smith in Blackburn and getting him confused with, you know, Mus Wood in Burnley. These are two incredibly prominent people. He is utterly, utterly useless as an education. So kids deserve better, parents deserve better.
Very quickly, let's try and squeeze two stories in. Just very quickly, the Daily Mail front page, Andrew, if you can.
Really significant. We now know that Cressida Dick, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, is perversely to be given a 2-year extension to her contract, even though she's utterly incompetent. The Mail has put together the most extraordinary panel. On the front page, it's the widow of Leon Britton, Lady Britton, the mother of Stephen Lawrence. Inside, it's the family of Lord Bramall, family of Sarah Everard, all these people who've been victims of Metropolitan Police incompetence, stupidity and ignorance. It's an extraordinary story, and they're all saying she must not be given an extension. She's utterly useless. She's never run a police force before. She's never been a detective. She only got the job because she was a woman. And here you've got two very different women on the front page of the Mail, along with a lot of people inside the paper saying she's got to go.
You've got 10 seconds.
I don't accept you only got Yeah, I don't accept you only got the job because of a woman, but Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, and Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, have to justify why they have given her another 2 years.
OK. We were going to do Emma Raducanu as well. A great success, a qualifier, 18 years old, historic in that respect. No qualifiers got through to that level, and we will talk about that another time. Kevin, Andrew, lovely to see you both. Thank you very much indeed.